We have a guest in the studio this afternoon, and she is pretty passionate about her topic. She actually thinks that students learn in the classroom. I was telling her a few moments ago, in many regards, I'm kind of intrigued by what we've experienced simply because I challenge the monolithic aspect of traditional school systems. Not to say that they're bad, not at all, but I think it's been a great opportunity for parents to reassess education in general. Christine Hanks is with us this afternoon. She is a parent of a Croatan High School freshman, the mother with 5, that's a handful, ladies and gentlemen, boys. And there's not a gray hair on her head. So she's figured it out. Christine, good afternoon. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
I'm going to get you a little closer.
My favorite topic to talk about.
Why is this your favorite topic?
Well, I tell you, I see the impact of not being in school full time, not only on my son, but my friends that I talk to, on their children, as I've connected with other parent advocates across our state and across the country, just really seeing the impact that not being in school is having on our kids, K through 12. So when we take school out of the lives of our children, we take everything away from them because they have one job. I've always told my boys, you got one job. I got a bunch of jobs. You got one job. You go to school and you get good grades. That's your job.
You're a mean parent. I mean, what is this? I mean,
are you kidding me?
Yeah.
That's the only job they have.
Yeah, but you're telling them they've got to get good grades.
Yeah, because they've got one job. Do it right.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. So you've been talking to people. I know you've talked to folks in Raleigh, locally. Tell us what you've learned.
Oh, gosh. I kind of wish I could unlearn some of the things I've learned in the last few months. It started for me when, really back in September, when the governor announced that elementary schools could go back to school in Plan A, which is the 5 days a week, minimal social distancing, but still wearing masks and the other safety protocols, but would not allow middle and high school students to go back to school for that 5 day a week. And I was already seeing at the middle of September the impact on my son, who's a freshman in high school.
What was that impact?
Not doing his work, not being able to keep up.
Was it a lack of discipline? Was a word I'm going to use.
That was part of it.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So there was no that three-dimensional environment is important. And when I say three-dimensional, obviously 2 dimensions, height and width, fine. The third dimension being they're present with the student and the teacher.
And every student is different and every child is different, and some can learn better in other environments. As a mom of boys, I know that for most of my boys, it was an in-person experience where if they could see the teacher, they could hear the information, then they would retain most of it, and would be able to do well in school. But without that, and then having to just watch either videos posted online or read chapters and assignments that were posted online. One, it was him being motivated to do it, which as a parent, he as a student have to take responsibility for. But also just that whole environment, he just was, and he was getting further and further behind. By the time I realized how far behind he was, because I assumed he was doing everything he was supposed to do, or I would have heard from the school. He was in such a deep hole we could not get out of. For him, and his grades suffered significantly, and it affected his self-esteem. The 2 days a week that he was supposed to go to school, it was a battle. He did not want to go those days because he was missing assignments. He felt behind. It really affected his self-esteem.
This is an interesting observation, and I commend you as a parent being, forthright in that. The fact that students, and here's obviously, I'm going to make an assumption, a parent that cares enough that you've been on the hustings, you've been to Raleigh, you've been calling, writing, and been involved. So obviously you care. One has to wonder, what about those students whose parents, for any number of reasons, not to be judgmental, who haven't had time, the ability to be involved?
Oh, I think about it all the time because I think my family, we are a middle class family. My husband and I, neither one, have lost our jobs. We have our health insurance. We know where our next meal is coming from. We're going to figure it out for our kids somehow or another, whether it's hiring a tutor. I did look at sending him to private schools, but you can't really switch in the middle of a school year in middle and high school.
Was that significant that you
Yes, we visited two private schools. I was going to drive him to Kinston to Parrott
Parrott
Academy.
Academy?
Yes, starting in January, so he could be in school 5 days a week. And I'm not blaming this on
No,
Croatan
no. I understand
at
that.
all.
No. Okay. I jumped in front of you. Say that again.
Well, this is not the decision to make to consider that option was not because of anything that Croatan should have been doing that they weren't doing. Now, I do wish that they had offered more synchronous classes, which is live classes, but I also understand their constraints that prevent them from being able to do that consistently. My kid needs to be in the classroom 5 days a week, and I needed to find a way to make that happen because it just did not look like that the governor was going to allow that to happen anytime soon. And clearly he hasn't, because here we are, and they still can't go to school 5 days a week.
Christine Hanks is with us. She's a parent of a Croatan High School freshman. We're talking with her about her efforts and her concerns related to students not being in school. We're going to come to this with greater detail in a moment, right after we take a break. Christine, let's talk about the condition for your son. What about this summer? What about remediation? What is the plan there? And what are you hearing from the schools?
So we haven't heard anything from the schools yet, but that's because there's a bill in front of the North Carolina legislature right now that will offer, if it's passed, will offer a 6-week remediation program. It will target at-risk kids.
Will 6 weeks satisfy? I know that you're not a teacher, you're not the student, but gut feeling, will 6 weeks satisfy? Will it be sufficient?
I think just like education in general, I think it will vary. I think there will be some schools and some children that it will, but I think there's going to be a lot that it will not be enough for them. And I don't think that's as much the case.
Your son's life has been interrupted. Yeah. Not only his life, but so many other students and parents. We're going to come back to this with your efforts, but I want to stick with your son for a moment. 6 weeks of his summer school. That's going to interrupt other activities, maybe even an opportunity for work, things of this nature. And you've got some parents, Christine, who are relying on their children to be actively employed during the summer.
Right.
Does that pose a problem to you?
I think that it does. I think that it is optional. The 6-week program is optional. And that's the part of the good and the bad, I think. As a parent, I want to be the one that's making the best choice for my son. My son probably will not attend the summer program because, again, he'll hate me even more than he does most of the time anyway.
A mean mother.
And I have also, since we were at that point last semester, I have become very involved in his school activities and his assignments. And we're in a very different
teacher.
No.
Okay. That's what I kind of figured. Because basically the teacher is a disinterested third party, and is going to be demanding and
absolutely
a little less responsive.
Yep. I've always said a teacher could have given my kids a Skittle for doing something correctly, and you would have thought that they had given them a gold dollar or something. I could buy them an Xbox and they'd be like, whatever.
Okay. Stay tuned for more here on Viewpoints on the Talk Station, FM 107, AM 1240, and FM 92.9. Viewpoints on the Talk Station, FM 107, AM 1240. We have Christine Hanks here in the studio with us. She's a mother of a freshman. I want to say middle schooler, my apologies. Freshman at Croatan High School in Morehead City. And she is, we were talking earlier about the frustration she's experienced and has, as her son has also experienced in his education this past year because of remote learning predominantly. He has been in the hybrid version, 2 days on, 3 days off. Not very satisfied. He himself was not thrilled by it. Christine has been on the hustings, and I want to talk about that. The president came out and said, we're going to get everybody back into school 1 day a week. We're going to actually increase the number of students, days in class, which is, of course, stupid because many schools were already operating 2 and 3 days a week, and of course in primary grades, full-time, 5 days a week. But you've been concerned because North Carolina has been, shall we say, slow in getting back into the classroom. So what have you been doing?
So I think the first thing that I did when I was trying to understand this decision about elementary schools and not middle and high schools, and in my mind, I'm always thinking, who's the decision maker? Whose door do I need to knock on? Whose email? What tree do I need to bark up? And I started asking a lot of questions, couldn't really figure that out. I was like, is it the local board of education? Is it the state board of education? Is it NCDPI? Is it the governor? And part of my frustration trying to figure this out, I reached out to Pat McElraft, our House representative for Carteret County, who's fabulous. Really, she helped put me in touch with some of her contacts in Raleigh. And what I learned through the process is that it's the laws enacted by the General Assembly that govern how a local board of education makes their decisions, and especially when in determining the school calendar for a year. So local boards of education have very little flexibility of the General Assembly. Unless the governor has issued an executive order, like he did in May of last year, under the Emergency Management Act, closing schools for the remainder of the 2019-2020 school year. So I started looking into it. I'm like, B, Plan C. I couldn't find one. I dig, and even now I hear at school board meetings that I listen to online, they'll say, well, we can't do this because of the governor's order. And I want to there's no executive order around these plans A, B, or C. It does not exist. And so then I'm like, well, if that's not what's not letting my kid go back to school, what is?
Well, he does have the Safe Schools Act, which he instituted with the A, B, and C. So I was under the impression that was qualified as an executive order.
So in terms of, you mean the plans A, B, and C, you're talking about the strong schools?
Strong schools.
Okay,
Safe,
yes.
Safe Strong. I'm sorry,
exactly.
Strong
The Strong Schools NC Toolkit.
That's right. Thank you.
So that's not an executive order. That's a document that's issued by NCDHHS. So what has happened is that Governor Cooper, through his executive agency and a politically appointed Secretary Cohen, anything they want to put in that toolkit, they can put in that toolkit. And schools have to abide by whatever the requirements are in that toolkit.
Right. Okay. So let's talk about your success so far. And of course, two things. One, the legislature has a bill in front of the governor. I think it's still sitting on his desk.
It's still sitting there.
He has until
the 27th, I think.
The 27th.
It's either Friday or I don't know if the 10 days starts on when.
It's 10 working days, by the way.
So it was delivered to him last Wednesday.
Exactly. So it's working days.
Yeah.
And we're going to assume that Wednesday was a working day, so that's 3. And then you've got the weekends do not qualify.
Okay.
So if I'm going out on a limb there, but I'm pretty confident.
I think I read they do, but we'll look it up.
That's fine. He has 10 days either to pocket veto, which is to say he doesn't sign it and it automatically becomes law, or he vetoes it. Now, I've seen different stories. What have you heard? Will he veto it, or is he going to just ignore it?
So even before, in my mind politically, and I'm not a politician, I do not want to be a politician. In my mind politically, his best move is to not do anything, because if he vetoes it, it's going to be a lot of ticked off mamas and daddies across the state. However, politically, there are a lot of political agendas, particularly maybe around some teacher organizations. And I hate saying that because I don't want to do it's so different outside of Carteret County than it is in Carteret County.
Right.
But at a state level, there's a lot of political pressure on him from these teacher-led organizations. And so it's almost better for him to do nothing politically. But to me, I hate that.
Have you talked to any of the teacher organizations, the NCAE?
Oh, no, she just blocked me on Twitter.
Oh, the president.
Yes. Yeah, she has a personal account. She doesn't have a public account, but she had let me follow her. But yeah, she just blocked me. I don't name call, but when I see them post something about Senate Bill 37, which is the bill sitting on Governor Cooper's desk, and she made the comment that, well, this bill takes all control away from local boards of education, and I just tweeted back. I said, "Did you read the bill?" And then I literally copy and pasted the verbiage from the bill that states that local boards of education have the authority to make those day-to-day decisions on whether, if they need to shift a school or a classroom from in-person to remote, they can do that. They can still do that. Now, what this bill doesn't allow is it doesn't allow Governor Cooper to swoop in, excuse me, with an executive order. So it takes away state control, but not local control. And that's, yeah. So I called her out on it and she blocked me.
Okay, Christine Hanks, who's been blocked by the president of the North Carolina Association of Educators. Christine, things are happening now. I go back to my question earlier. Obviously, there's going to be a need for remediation. Do you think that 6 weeks is sufficient, or let me throw with just a few moments left in the program, a real curve? Would it be better for students K through 12 just to repeat a year?
You know, it's interesting that you say that. Last semester, excuse me, when my son was struggling, I actually talked with one of his teachers about that I thought that would be our only option, because I don't want them to lower the standards.
Right.
And I don't want him to spend the rest of his high school career feeling behind and feeling like he's inadequate. So I think the 6 weeks is better than nothing. The sooner we can get these kids back in the classroom now, better. The 6 weeks will help. I think that it may target kids that are most at risk to catch up. I have a lot of confidence in our teachers here in Carteret County. I have no doubt that the teachers here are going to take care of our kids. In the rest of the state, I'm worried.
Let's talk about the rest of the state with about a minute to go.
Yeah.
Some regions of the state have not met at all this year.
That's correct.
Where?
So in Durham County Public Schools, K-12, none of those students have stepped foot in a classroom for a year. They have been Plan C remote this whole time. In Fayetteville and Cumberland County, the high schools there, those students have not been in the classroom since March of last year. And it's school boards like in a similar situation in Wake County with the high schools as well. And I think they might have done some hybrid, but there are a lot of kids who have not been in the classroom at all, which is really what led our Republican legislators to put together this bill.
How, accepting the fact that you've been blocked by the president of the North Carolina Association of Educators, a credit. It's the enemies you keep as well and make as well as the friends you keep. But my question to you is, what is your feeling about your efforts? You've been doing this now for how long?
Since September.
And how do you feel?
Better today than I have in a long time. There's been a lot of up and downs. Connecting with other moms across the state.
What have they told you?
It's been a very different fight for them because most of them their fight is at the local Board of Education level.
Okay.
Because their local boards of education are voting to keep their kids out of the classroom. Here, our Board of Education has always voted to allow the least restrictive method of in-person instruction. So my battle has always been, what can I do at the state to fix it? Whereas theirs has been more at, let's get the bare minimum that their board won't even allow them to have.
What next for you, Christine?
Well, I'm watching this bill continue.
Senate Bill 37.
Yes, Senate Bill 37. I am asking that people contact the governor's office, either by email or phone. Let him know whether you support or do not support this bill.
Okay.
I'm not, everybody can make up their mind, but please read it before you decide one way or the other.
Okay. Senate Bill 37.
Yes.
Christine Hanks with us this evening. I think we've been broadcasting this, streaming this as well. Christine, I'm going to be talking to you again in the very near future. Stay with us for more here on the Talk Station.